Black Dahlia.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Black Dahlia is my favorite out of the newly introduced characters. The devs definitely didn't want to disappoint with her, and it shows, for she features a more than deadly arsenal under that grandma's mantle. She feels right to control and has a lot of combo material, which usually would be a common detractor, but I'm gonna withhold what circumvents this. Her character ability is arguably one of the most fun implemented yet, as it allows Dahlia to fire a bullet during multiple instances, even while in midair, or during a backdash for spacing. There's just one button in order to fire, meaning that Dahlia will do most of the aiming for you. It's really fun trying to figure out ways in how to make the most of the gun, although understandably it's not a combo extender. I mean, it'd be broken otherwise. Most of her bullets are regular, but slots 3 and 6 are special shots, 3rd being determined by element and 6th being completely random. The special shots don't inflict anything in terms of meter or buff control, but they have special properties to them. Fire goes through enemies, but once it lands it generates a multi-hit fire. Ice immobilizes the opponent for a free opening. Shock works the same as ice, but with less stun time and some extra damage, as well as a straightforward path. Laser is a quick long distance hit, and finally Buckshot is close range but with massive knockback. It's a lot to take into, but once you try it out, it's much easier than at first glance. And that's not even covering her base kit. It's good shit, lads. Biggest highlights by far are Stage Hazard as a constant source for guard break with an explosive finisher, Doormat as Dahlia's equivalent of Dragon Drop, T-Sleep working as both a debuff clearing and gun reload, Medici Mousetrap as a good blockbuster controller, and Empower, which features guaranteed curse and functions as a combo extender. It's as disgustingly good as it sounds. Last on the feature moves there's Onslaught, a tricky to use move that grants Deadeye on hit. Deadeye is the new buff in town and it leaves a lot of impact by ignoring all defense value, unflinching, evasion, thorns and auto block. Deadeye is both a general convenience and situational buff at the same time, and partly a substitute for piercing, although I would say it's still recommendable to invest on set stat regardless. It's also further proof that some variants are really outdated. In terms of marquee, they're both pretty average. Metal Overload is the more favorable, as it provides extra damage to special shots and allows them to inflict armor break, while No Time to Die grants Dahlia haste and regeneration when she suffers a critical hit. A defensively oriented marquee, but as we'll see there's not a lot of defensive variants. Last for the prestige, it's really useful, for it equates to free Deathmark and Deadeye each time you reload. It only can potentially conflict with a few variants revolving around last bullet recharges, but otherwise it's free damage at no cost, so it definitely climbs high on the prestige rankings. Hell, it might be the best prestige in the game straight up. With that said, Black Dahlia absolutely hit the headshot, wink wink, in terms of potential and utility. Her only miss is the lack of recovery that doesn't involve getting hit, but otherwise you have plenty of options to take heavy control of the game. Trigger Happy got a lot of hype out of her damage to off-screen foes, similar to that of Neuromancer. Its effectiveness has yet to be tested on a Rift's environment, as to deal with common threats off-screen, but it's speculated she's going to have average results at best, in part due to her base bronze stats, but more so due to her off-screen damage being recoverable, much like Neuromancer. She can circumvent this thanks to her enrage gain each time off-screen enemies take damage, but even still overall results are trusted to be just okay. Prize fight wise, she's not much more than a sheltered in Dahlia form, with a mix of the cryptids, so she's a good early game choice and has a potential niche, but it has yet to be tested.
Daddy screamed real good before he died.
Golden Gunner is an excellent precision user, as she gains 5 stacks on reload with Empty Chamber. It features a precision frequency similar to that of Dragon Brawler, but with the addition of Deathmark through Prestige, and even more spicy, unblockable shots with at least 3 precision stacks. Naturally, you can't get a blockbuster finisher with these, but you can generate an opening to combo a parting gift right after for massive damage. You have to watch out for Final Fight though, as the detonation counts as its separate blockbuster. Otherwise, she comes across as a decent enough precision user. She hasn't been that much tested on Rifts, but I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt and rate her relatively high.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
Lethal Weapon at first glance doesn't look all that impressive, just a Dahlia with the lowest attack and a bleed ability implemented on shots. but it goes much deeper than what you might expect. Remember that Dahlia's kit features curse on it, meaning that Valentines aren't that much of a threat. Additionally, your third shot will always be ice thanks to the water element, working as furthermore chances to land shots on the enemy. This way, you'll consistently reach 5 bleed stacks with little to no issue, pulling off remarkable long shots if wielded correctly. And as an ice bonus, you gain 3% meter gain and 1% health while nearby bleeding opponents. An ultimately basic variant, often outclassed by most Philias, but I'd be lying if I said she does a bad bleeding job.
You insignificant!
Dame Slayer is likely to be the only blunder within the Dahlia lineup. Her only noticeable feature is a manual 20-second doom after reloading with no bullets. On paper it's great not having to deal with the bullshit that some enemy variants may present, but there's 2 crippling weaknesses. First, it's one use only, so you have to choose wisely who do you want to doom out of the match. And second, good old resistance. If it misses, there's no second chance. Thankfully, it's a permanent doom, so should it land, it doesn't go away. But you're forced to sit through the whole duration of the doom as Dame Slayer, otherwise it gets removed. It's an underwhelming insta-kill, and partly overshadows the bonus damage and meter control to lightning shots, which is alright. Soul Crusher is a pretty average variant, gaining Deadeye and inflicting guard break each time the opponent gains any buff. It's good for an instant counter to buffs such as Thorns or Evasion, as seen in the likes of Criminal Mind and that Soul Fox. But it also competes with Deadeye on Prestige, provided it needs to be unlocked beforehand, but once you do, you simply can gain it at any moment, rather than having to match with the opponent's play. To Soul's credit, having Deadeye match opponent buff gains can be faster and more convenient on solo nodes, but that's its only advantage. The guard break itself is okay if you don't feel like using Stage Hazard, and there isn't much to comment on the damage bonus per buffs and debuffs on the enemy. It does its job, but you'll need to stack a lot of anything to feel its effects. So yeah, kind of average.
Today, Garfield, we're going to eat nothing but raisins.
Corrosive Agent is a great contender for the best barrier user and an excellent debuff cleanser. Each time a blockbuster is used, you gain 3 barrier stacks and clear all debuffs. Pretty insane combined together. And if disabled blockbusters or Hex were to get in the way, you have T-Sleep as a failsafe. It's really absurd just how easily she can reach 5 barrier stacks, which while benefiting from such, shots are unblockable and inflict a 10-second slime. In short, you generate both a heavy defense for yourself and an opening generator, especially giving her guaranteed access to the ice bullet. But the positives do not end there, as thanks to her relatively low attack and high HP, she should be able to engage against common Don't Poke the Beer nodes, as the reflect is taken by barrier. If she is to be fought on defense, then it's all a matter of not making use of blockbusters. That said, because of her barrier, Corrosive Agent is highly desirable for Rift purposes.
I'm not being a big shot. You're being a big shot on the air.
Vaporwave Vixen, get out. There's a new unflinching Thorns and Miasma user in town. Unfazed presents a never before seen gimmick in wall bouncing, as performing it against the opponent grants you unflinching and 3 Thorn stacks. The apparent obstacle is that only Buckshot can consistently achieve wall bounces, which isn't a problem as it's guaranteed to dark types, and while benefiting from Thorns, you gain a 10-second Miasma stack every 2 seconds. Already that forces consistent play around the Buckshot if you want to keep constant Thorns ergo constant Miasma, but doing so will grant you consistent recovery, cheap damage and meter control, all while keeping a fast-paced combat. And if you're feeling lazy for whatever reason, using inner pieces will work just fine. I definitely see the excitement around her and have high hopes on her performance. Martial Law may seem like yet another charge attack variant, janky to use but with an admittedly cool ability once it kicks in. Charge attacks grant a 12-second haste, and while benefiting from it, you have a 25% chance to inflict armor break and heavy bleed. Here's the catch: since it does not specify it has to be her own haste, any source works, which is something we've already seen before in many cases. But the real spicy shit is that Martial Outlaw's ability doubles down as a support. That makes any other haste user eligible for the use of her abilities, her apparent, sketchy, and a Beowulf rough copy, just to name a few. The best part is the inherently good value of haste itself, so you're both chipping away health from the opponent while also maintaining a faster paced gameplay. Really solid offense support regardless of the charge condition.
Me? Gunga ga 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 ga.
Psychommander is raw strength on its purest form. Her first noticeable aspect is the instant 5 enrage stacks upon using all of your shots, and final stand for good measure. Easy double damage is one thing, but then it gets even more absurd. As you benefit from enrage, all specials grant you a 10-second deadeye and 3 10-second evasions. It's pretty blatant that running with Psychommander makes you essentially burst proof, and you can usually get away with more than you'd normally be able to in terms of dealing with the AI. Of course, that doesn't mean it's brain dead automatically. You are to either keep an eye out for your last bullet or carry enraged supports, as well as having constant special spam to keep the evasion going. And as it is with evasion, also keep an eye out for multi-hit attacks, such as Argus Agony. But regardless, Psychommander definitely is a powerhouse and a half, and you will quite literally never get hit at all if used correctly. For Monger is an enraged diamond variant. Okay, I'll actually talk about her. Each shot grants her either enrage, thorns or regeneration, and a 15% boost to shots per buff applied. The damage scaling naturally can get pretty high, and using last call under several buffs would dish out massive damage. However, she has one crippling weakness. A knockdown condition. It's not as bad as with Timeless Hero where a single hit erases any progress, but one burst can turn into a frustrating loss of buffs. It's enough to make her less valuable than Psychommander overall. At the same time, it could be possible to make a mostly aerial oriented combo with Dahlia, as proven by the many combo videos out there, so good skill could bypass this issue. She may not be a major meta piece, but she can hit hard.
Stupid dog! You made me look bad!
I'm sorry, I'm just at a loss for words due to how utterly busted Unholy Host is. I mean, let's break it down real quick. 20-second Hex and Curse on either her tagging in or the opponent, complete buff removal alongside the previous effect, and a constant 2% HP recovery from any point of the field if the enemy suffers from any debuff. That's an insane ability already, but here's the cherry on top. Remember Sketchy before the nerf? You know, her ability activated even when an opponent died? I think you can put 2 and 2 together. It's just that busted. You can basically ignore anything the opponent throws at you, and thanks to Curse and Hex's length, you can even double down as a support for teammates, should your Dahlia build not be as strong as others. However, that doesn't mean she's free of weak points. Having a tag-in based ability means she'll be near useless on solo nodes. Furthermore, while you can repeatedly spam tag-ins or outtakes, Hex and Curse are obviously vulnerable to resistance, so equipping accuracy is advised. Even with these obstacles, it cannot be said enough that Unholy Host downright fucks.
So now I'm in the Battle City, and I'm gonna beat the shit out of this fucker right here. It's always better to go second, because you can't attack on your first turn. Alright, fucking, that's great. What? Are you fucking kidding me?